come a little bit more in front, please? Okay, just the students at the back, why don't you come in front? Come. Without much further ado, we'd like to start the session on gender stereotyping in South Asia. And I'd like to once more introduce my audience to you. From the left, Ms. Meenakshi Lekhi, the Member of Parliament from New Delhi constituency from India. Ms. Hina Rabbani Khar, Pakistan's former foreign minister and a leader with the Pakistan People's Party. Ms. Anuradha Koirala of Meitei, Nepal, which is a non-profit organization that rescues women from sex trafficking and helps them stand on their own feet. And Nisha Adhikari, a very well-known actress, television actress, radio jockey, video jockey. Welcome all of you to this session in Kathmandu, Nepal. May I start with you, Meenakshi? What I'd like to do is to try and connect several themes together. You're a politician. We're all of us women here, we all play several roles in our lives. You're a politician, you're a mother, you're a sister, you're an aunt. But I'm just wondering whether you feel that in a region like ours, we are forced to play one role much more than the other. For example, as a woman politician, are you expected to do certain things because you're a woman?
I think it comes back to the question to who decides what the role is going to be. And if I have been given the opportunity to decide my own role, I choose the role which I want to play at whatever time I choose to play. And nobody decides, and I don't allow others to decide for me. And I'm very firm on that, very, very firm.
You won't allow anybody else to decide for you?
No, absolutely not. It's my decision, and I think the entire debate about what women should do, should not do, what the idea of empowerment is, I think it all boils down to the choices they make and the choices they choose to make for themselves, and it's not for others to decide. I'll give you a small example, that if I'm told to speak, I've done immense work on women's rights, but I'm a lawyer by profession. And if somebody decides to say, oh, she's not going to speak in the parliament on the idea of defense or internal security or any of those issues which are very masculine by temperament, I would refuse. I'll say, I'm sorry, I'm not here to discuss gender issues. I know I'm very good at it. But I think you are denying men the right to show their sensitive side, because ultimately men get affected by the status of women as much as women get affected. So let men showcase the sensitive side where they want women to come on board. And I think the president, the Afghanistan president, has just showed that he's concerned. He talked about his grandmother who's brought him up 30 years ago, and he said women were not allowed to move out of homes for 30 years, and he's very glad that 38% of them participated in democracy by choosing to vote. So I think men have a hugely sensitive side to their personality, and we are denying the right to men by only discussing what they are trying to control. I think it's not about control. The quality of a person is quality of a person, and it is irrespective of gender. Women can be brave, and men could be emotional. So I think that stereotype needs to break down.
So is this stereotype, Ms. Khar, I'm just wondering, is this stereotype inside our own minds, inside the mind of the woman? For example, somebody like yourself, a very, very successful politician, you're perhaps the youngest foreign minister, certainly of Pakistan, but amongst the younger politicians in your country. How did you decide, did you have sort of obstacles in your way, or did it help that your father was also in politics?
Look, I think in the South Asia context, it will be unfair to talk about all women with the same brushstroke. I think South Asia consists of two types of women, if broadly you want to make that demarcation. They're the privileged women like you and me, and many people, practically everybody in this room. And then they're the ones who have to actually go through the gender, not only stereotyping, but the lack of access to education, to possibly health, to similar treatment that is met out to them because they were born a woman rather than a man. To say that that doesn't exist in all of South Asia would be, again, not looking at things as they are. So privileged women like me, we have doors open up for us. I think many people often ask me that, did you suffer at the hands of politics because you're a woman? You know, people would obviously get an opportunity to talk about you, etc., which you will happily ignore. But otherwise, doors open for you much more because you are a successful woman. I think with the same success factor, if you're a man, you're not noticed as much or do not stand out as much as, you know, if you're a woman. Now look at the case of South Asia. India has produced a prime minister. Pakistan has produced a woman prime minister and, you know, woman speaker, woman foreign minister, woman state bank governor, etc., etc., etc. We have Sri Lanka. We have Bangladesh, 2 women prime ministers. So, you know, looking at that, I think on the political landscape, women are more well represented than they will be in Scandinavian countries. Now, is that to say that women do not suffer at the hands of cultural inhibitions, being left out of major, not only dialogue, but just access? I think that's a serious problem in Pakistan, in all of South Asia, and I think that has to do with cultural norms more than religious norms. I can say that in the case of Islam, for instance. Islam has given women more rights than women ever had, right? But the cultural norms that we've inherited have left women not have the type of access that we would as a society like to do. And there are many things that different countries are doing to address that. I think we need to do much more. Law will be a tool that we will continue to have to use to stop the abuse of women by more powerful elements within society and within their own houses also.
Thank you so much for bringing, for sort of sharing with the audience the representation of women in politics across South Asia. As you just said, Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Khaleda Zia, Chandrika Kumaratunga in Sri Lanka, Benazir Bhutto in Pakistan, Mrs. Gandhi in India, in Nepal. But I'm just wondering, Mrs. Koirala, do you think that despite the fact that so many women have so much power, or at least political power, do you feel that they are being able to use this power effectively? For example, to improve the condition of less privileged women in the region?
Thank you. I think the president just now of Afghanistan has already said what I want to say. Yeah? We ourselves feel it. It's not that, I think. They are powerful women, as our foreign minister has said from Pakistan, but we are still behind, you see. And it is us. We should not blame anybody else. I think it is us who should utilize our powers and not be stigmatized and say that, oh fine, we are left behind and all that. And another thing which I could say is also, you have stated that they were very powerful women, and still they are powerful women in power, but they have not been able to, I'm very sorry, but they have not been able to utilize their power.
Do you believe they have not been able to utilize that power?
No, not at all, because at present, in the house in Nepal, before, during the interim constitution said, I'm talking about the citizenship, yeah? Citizenship was supposed to be, before it was mother or father. But now they're saying mother and father together. Supposing a child, or a girl, a lady, is raped, and she is pregnant, and she gets a child, and the child is a Nepali. Now, if after 16 he has to get his citizenship, and if he has to go to get citizenship, where does he get his father? And they are not being able to speak about, none of the Women Constitution Assembly members are being able to speak against this. We are suffering for it, and we are fighting for it, and all the activists are together saying that wife, mother, and father, it should be all.
Nisha, I'll just come to you in a second, but I just wanted to ask you, I think she's raising a very important point, Mrs. Koirala is raising a really important point, that women like yourselves and across the South Asian landscape there are women politicians. But you haven't been able to effectively use the power that you have. Would you agree? Is that an accusation?
I think, I will tend to agree and disagree with it at the same time, because I think what is important to recognize is that how much power can you wield as a single, just by your gender, you are entitled to do a job that you are doing, right? However, I will give you the case of Pakistan and tell you that in Pakistan, when we had legislation which required almost 20% representation at the national level of women in parliament, which meant that women, for instance, I've been in parliament twice, but both times I have fought my elections on the direct seat. I have not taken the reserved seat, so to speak. So now when we did that, and then in provincial assemblies, we had 33% representation, at the local levels even more than that. Now what that did was that it bring a mass of women inside parliament who took it upon themselves to legislate for the sake of women. And in that time of 5 years during our term, we saw more legislation to protect women at the workplace, against violence of women at homes, in the workplace, and many, many legislative work was done to give their inheritance, to give their entitlement, etc. So I think affirmative action in that way helps much more than singular women or group of women becoming powerful in their own right. I would tend to agree, therefore, partially with what you said.
And Ms. Lekhi, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's cabinet has several women, 7 women, if I'm not wrong. Several of you're a spokesperson of your party. But somehow it seems to me that you're not able to represent the cause of women. Am I correct in
No,
this
you're
judgment?
not right. You're not right. And I'll give you the practical side of this, because as a practicing lawyer, before entering politics, single-handedly, though the representation went on my party's letterhead, after this Nirbhaya case happened, we asked for changes in law, and out of the 100%, we got 70% through, even with the UPA government, and the law was amended. And that was cause of women. I've personally been the one who has supervised the construction of sexual harassment at workplace, reservation of women in the parliament.
So you're saying that you're able to cut across political lines?
Absolutely. And all, not just women, but men came on board too. And that is my point. The point I'm making is, it is not A versus B situation. Women are not the only ones who should be concerned for the cause of women. It is men who get affected as much, and we need to get them on board and let them showcase their sensitive side. And I'm very firm that if you take a poll in this room with men, they would agree with most causes which women suffer from. So idea is that why should it be that women, why should there be ghettoization that women issues will only be addressed by women? I am of the opposite opinion. I am of the opinion that if you want to discuss rape laws, you want to discuss sexual harassment at the workplace, get the men to speak out and let men debate that in the parliament, and if they choose not to, shame them. I think that is a better strategy to combat gender-based violence, because it's not as if men are against women. There are certain men who become responsible for violence, but there is a great number of people who support causes of women, and if you set the right standards, right laws will be passed and right people will come forward.
Nisha Adhikari, I was wondering if I could ask you, is there increasing ghettoization, if you like, whether it's in issues of gender stereotyping, gender violence, just young people, not only in Nepal, but across South Asia? Do you think that the forces of conservatism are getting stronger and stronger?
We could look at it as like from the both side, like youths being so liberating nowadays and being influenced by whatever is happening in the West, and how we also look at the theory of globalization and global village and all. I would like to say that so many issues that we thought would not be able to discuss in a forum like this.
Like what issues?
Like, for instance, gender biasness, stereotyping, anything. Like, you know, it has the globalization, the global perspective, the media coming out has given us youth platform to, you know, I would like to refer to an example of Emma Watson. It went viral, her speech, and so many of her quotes have also been referred right here on this platform. So that we didn't have, right? We can look up to women and youths fighting for the issue and coming forward and breaking the conservative grounds. So that is also there, but also, you know, on the hindsight, we can also see that with the increasing population and with the sad point, what I have faced is when it comes to these issues, being in the media and the movies and being generalized and stereotyped, I live this every day.
You do live it every day?
Every day, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to work, from till the moment I go to bed.
What is it that you face?
Like, you know, to sum it up, basically what I face in a subjective point of view is that people are aware of all this. People want to, like it has already been mentioned, also men are coming up in Nepal to, you know, fight for issues like this and put women forward in so many aspects. But the awareness is there to divide it and view it from the micro perspective. The awareness is there, but people like they kind of fail to execute it and implement it in daily life.
So you feel subjectified, you feel commodified, you feel that you're being looked at as an object rather than as a woman.
Yeah, and I face that every day. And like I said, we are the issues here. It's not just an issue, it is the life I've been leading for so long, being in a South Asian country. I was brought up in Germany, and coming back here and living here and working here, I face this every day. But then, having said that, it's also amazing how people at times go out of their way to modify these things. For instance, you know, I recently conquered Mount Everest. I was on the top of the world. And
you climbed Mount Everest?
Yeah.
Okay. That's so, how many of you have climbed Mount Everest? Not one person in this audience. That's great, Nisha.
See? See the difference, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, you know, well, while we are in the mountains, in from camp 1 to camp 4, I was supposed to share a tent with a Sherpa. He was my guide, he was my God, he was supposed to save me, we were supposed to look after each other. And sharing a tent in, you know, a regular life basis would mean taboo. My parents would be like, hey, wow, you know, and suddenly I come from the mountains, and it's okay to adjust to the fact that basic survival instincts kick in, and it's okay to actually spend nights with one Sherpa guide, and it is regarded as sort of, you know, still pure and acceptable, and, you know, things like that. So it's amazing how
when you come down to the plains, when you come down to Kathmandu Valley,
yeah.
What did people say? Did they...
I just wanted to go back to the mountains, like seriously, because it is amazing how Mother Nature never looks upon me as a woman and looks at me and says, hey, you know, there's going to be a blizzard, but since you're a woman, I'll grant you your life, or whatever, you know, like...
she takes special care of you.
Exactly, she does not. I mean, either you live or you die, and being in the vast, you know, raw lap of Mother Nature, it's a very simple lesson that I derived from it, that, you know, gender bias, it's really sad that we actually have to face this.
Right. I'm going to open this discussion to the House, to the audience. If anybody would like to ask a question, I just want to say one thing. 2 years ago in New Delhi, this is in December 2012, we had this horrifying, absolutely horrifying incident in which this young girl was very, very brutally raped. I'm talking about the Nirbhaya incident. And I'm just wondering, it had a huge impact. Ms. Meenakshi Lekhi talked about this recently, she just talked about this, and how this helped change in some way attitudes inside Delhi, if not in other parts of India. But I'm just wondering, did this have an effect, an echo in Nepal, for example, or in other parts of South Asia? Would anybody like to talk about that? Yeah, go ahead. Yes, Damini or Nirbhaya, yes.
It certainly had a big impact in Delhi, but it may not be equal, but it had a large impact on our country as well. And at least in cities, there was a large impact, and issues of rapes and other issues of sexual harassment started coming forward. Before that, maybe, I don't know whether media was reluctant to show it, or people were reluctant to bring the case towards the authority. But after those incidents, after that Damini incident, the issues of sexual harassment and rape issues, the issues of gender discrimination started coming forward. And since that year, it has been the campaign for violence against women has been taken seriously in our country as well. I think it was that incident that stipulated or that gave fire to this moment of feminism, or what we call, I would not like to call even it as a feminism, but the approach towards equal rights among men and women. So
no, call it feminism. Don't hesitate about calling it feminism, really. But Anuradha ji, I wanted to ask you.
Thank you.
We have incidents across our countries. There is, apart from sexual violence, there's, dowry deaths, all kinds of other violence. Do you think that we are becoming more sensitive, or do you think we are becoming more callous?
I think we are becoming more sensitive because if you look, this is for me and for all of us. I think this is not Southeast Asia. This is South Asia. I think this is just Kathmandu. We have to go outside Kathmandu and think about what happens there and how equal we are there. Talking about just 15 kilometers from here, people are still, there is discrimination on education.
Discrimination
on education. Okay. The government says we have free access to education in the government school, not in the public school. But girls are not allowed. I'm going back to your question because you're talking about. So girls, if there are 5 children, 2 are girls and 3 are boys, the parents would rather educate the boys, and not the girls, because the girls would get married and go. So still, we are behind. The sensitization has not been so much. People have not been aware of things outside the valley or outside the capital. So there has to be more sensitization on education, on equal rights, and I've already told you about kinship, which is right here. And I think all the issues relating and like dowry, we Nepalis, we
trafficking, in girls.
I would also go to that. Because of no access to education, no access to job opportunities, the girls are being lured by the traffickers for trafficking. And for example, we say that we don't do dowry in Nepal, but there is dowry existing, because when the trafficker comes, he never says, I will take your child and make her a prostitute. He says, your child is getting big, she needs money to get married. So that is how he lures and takes. So that means the girl needs money, so all of us need money to get married. There is dowry in a little portion or a big portion. So I think until and unless this kind of debate goes on, and if we do not fight for the equal rights of the girls, then and the policymakers, if they don't think about the gender issues, then I think we will still have to fight for another 20 50 years.
Please.
When we talk about the gender equality issue, I think there is remaining dialogue. There are many untold stories. Yes, South Asia as a whole, we have achieved so far. There are women in decision-making policies, women in media. But, when we really see the growth, it is very slow. Still, South Asia is family of a home of 40% poor people. And if we really, distribute it between men and women, the most of the, percentage goes to women's front. And most of the South Asian women are in the informal sector. South Asian women are going to Gulf countries to work as a domestic helper to earn $100 per month. You know, we're talking about the, terrorism and then other issues, but women, children, girls are dying because of their own family. Most of the data shows that they are killed by their own partners, own fathers. So most educated people who have access to resources, who have access to technology, they are, they do not want their girl child to be, come to this earth. So there is a serious, talk of discussion. We do not really represent all South Asian women. But now my question is to the leader of South Asia is that, what would be your suggestion to the 18th Shark Summit? Most of the women are not there in the big talk. When you talk about macroeconomic policies, when we talk about, where the decisions are taking place, but then, for the economic growth, for other things, what would be your concrete, suggestion to the 18th Summit?
That's a great question. What would you tell the SAARC leaders gathered here in Kathmandu?
First suggestion would be that a rapporteur on gender issue be appointed immediately. The second would be on all the forums, whether it's economic cooperation, energy, to terrorism, counter-terrorism. I think women should represent on each fora because women are not there just to discuss gender issues.
So you have to genderize the conversation.
Absolutely. You see, women form the most the largest minority in every setup, and not just the developing nations as SAARC nations, but across the globe. And that biggest minority in the world is excluded. It is an exclusionary process by which you give them a corner that please talk on gender issues and get excluded from everything else. So I think it is this exclusion which needs to be targeted, because women have shown their prowess in even military, which is more masculine than any other job in the world. And one had to fight, and I was there for that particular matter, where permanent commission to women officers in the army was being denied. And then the court came through, and court took a very strong case against the... So I think that's how you can break the stereotype.
Yes.
And two immediate suggestions.
Hina, do you have any suggestions?
I think it's a tough one because typically, frankly speaking, I don't think putting women necessarily, or taking mainstreaming gender issues has typically, because I agree. I think a lot of money, external money, is also spent on fancy conferences on gender equality, etc., which leads to naught. To be quite honest, it's a great platform for people to get freebies in terms of all sorts of interesting things. But really, I believe that if you want to really empower, and again, I think we're all agreeing with President Ghani a bit too much, more than I would like. But the Pakistan People's Party, for instance, when it came into power, decided to empower women through two forms. One, through legislation, because typically in sophisticated societies, and none of the South Asian countries currently represents sophisticated societies, where the society itself protects women, as it does in the Scandinavian or many other developed countries, you need strong legislation. So for instance, in Pakistan, you needed legislation against acid attacks, because it was a norm in Pakistan, and you wanted men to know, and any attacker to know, that if you were to do it, you could potentially face 5 years.
What about the blasphemy law? I know you're saying that
again, blasphemy law is something which requires possibly legislative changes, but more than that, it's a cultural norm of blasphemy law and how it is applied, which is problematic.
But the state has not been able to deal with that.
No, the state